So welcome back to Newcastle Central and what kind of looks like a little bit of a train graveyard at the moment. Been a while since I did a video. It seems like almost every video I end up starting out apologizing for it being such a long time. I've been very busy lately, as I typically have been, unfortunately. Hopefully now things are finally, actually, for real, genuinely, honestly, starting to calm down a little bit. But they have had quite a few little things going on. You might be able to see one of them hiding out in the bottom of the screen. So let's look at what I've been up to and what I've tried to be getting up to over the last few weeks or so. So the first thing that you might have noticed was this little NCE Power Cab. I've been going backwards and forwards on a big boy DCC controller for quite a while. For the most part, I've been using a Bachmann Easy Command controller, and that's worked fine. It hasn't given me a whole lot of control over what I could do with the locomotives. The club that I'm a part of mainly uses NCE Power Cab rather for DCC control. Two of the layouts use NCE. One of them uses Digitrack on the N-Track modules, just because that's what the actual guy who built most of those N-Track modules uses. So he owns all of the power cabs and the boosters and things like that. But the main club layout and then the T-Track modules are all NCE. I don't actually use the power cab a whole lot with the club because we use Jam RI. To actually control everything wirelessly through either a cell phone or a tablet or something like that. So I did have a little bit of a video. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to end up doing anything with it. But that black box on the front there is a Raspberry Pi. That middle one board is then the NCE USB controller, and then that far one is the 5 amp booster. So that's actually not connected up right now, because with the NCE I found I haven't really needed it, but I certainly can give it more juice. But I needed that 5 amp booster when I was initially fitting the frog juices, which we saw in one of the last videos. The Bachmann Easy Command, I can't remember what it was. It wasn't quite putting out the 1.8 amps or whatever that I'd actually needed to be able to trip the frog juices. The NCE Power Cab does. So I do have that 5 amp booster just in case I needed it. But I was actually finding some really odd behavior when it came to those frog juices. I don't know if it was just I have something wired wrong. It wasn't tripping the NCE Power Cab, but it was almost like that 5 amp booster has built-in short detection, so that if you were trying to overload it for some reason, or if there was incorrect wiring, it would basically short it out, and that's almost seemed like it was happening, which is totally the inverse of what it should have been doing. So it worked fine with just the Bachmann Easy Command once I had that NCE Power Cab in place. That 5 amp booster wasn't actually working with the frog juices, so that's disconnected right now. But everything else seems like it's going okay. So I've just got the port in there, and so the power cab itself runs into that port, and then which one is it? This cable, I think I've got a video that I might put together how all of this works. Runs into the USB interface board, from the USB interface board into the Raspberry Pi, and the Raspberry Pi actually then makes everything wireless, so that I can then control all of the trains from a tablet or from a smartphone. I find that actually works pretty well when I can actually get to run trains. So this has kind of been the main thing purchase-wise that I've done, because this was quite an investment on the power cab and the Raspberry Pi and the USB interface board. I did also pick up an auto programming reverser. And so the idea here is, I think I've talked about this before, this is just a freight siding on the edge of the platform. And so what you can do with the NCE Power Cab, by default, when you come into program, it says what you want to do. Do you want to program on demand? Or you can actually choose to do it on a dedicated programming track. When you choose to do the programming, you can have that auto reverser, I think it's inside the house somewhere in the garage. It'll automatically flip the power and only actually run it on a programming track. So essentially it's a very small board it's almost like the size of the frog juices, that sits in between the power cab and the actual track itself. So when you decide that you want to program, it only sends power to that programming track. When you then come out of programming mode, it then sends DCC power to the rest of the layout. The idea there being that I can have 4 or 5 locos actually parked up on the layout itself, no problem, when I choose to do any kind of programming work, I can bring it onto the programming track here, and essentially I can do programming on the men without any kind of concerns the rest of the locos that are hanging out on the layout, incorrectly being programmed. So that's been the main thing that I've worked on, this NCE Power Cab, and then that Raspberry Pi. Like I say, it's worked out pretty well. But then let's talk about this train graveyard that I kind of have hanging out here. So one of the biggest problems that I've had, and the reason why I haven't had an awful lot of running, is I just haven't had very reliable locomotives, and I wasn't sure if that was the power on the track, if that was wiring, if that was just the age of these locomotives. So I went through Peter's Spares, and I got new brushes, I got new springs. I'd already put new DCC chips into all of these, and I'm having a hell of a time. I could really use some advice from people that have used these older Class 43s. It's not entirely Class 43s, which is why I'm kind of starting to second guess myself. One thing that I picked up at the train show, I had a video of the Monroe train show, and I managed to pick up this, which is it's from about 1996, so it's one of the old Hornby locos, one of the Class A4s, and not at all really in keeping with what I will be running here, in terms of late 1980s. But this is such an iconic train for me. I remember going to the National Railway Museum in York when I was about 7 or 8, and I remember seeing this thing and just being overawed with it. And I really actually like it. I've taken the tender off, but there is the tender as well. And so when I saw this thing hanging out, in the Seattle area at a train show, I had to pick it up. I got it for a pretty decent price. It was basically brand new. When I got it home and opened it up and took it out of the box, it actually had the original sales receipt. So that was kind of cool. It was from Beatty's model shop. Somewhere in London, I don't remember exactly where, but I kind of got a kick out of that. I used to go to Beatty's quite a lot and buy FX model plans. And I think one of the first remote control cars, a Tamiya something buggy, I got from Beatty's as well. So I kind of got a kick with the fact that the train itself was from Beatty's and the original sales receipt was in there. But I had kind of joked a little bit with Richard from New Junction, the idea of having visiting steam locomotives on some kind of a heritage tour, and so I think this one might be chalked up for that. Fortunately, I can't get this to run any more than I can get my other locos to run, and I'm really just at a loss as to what I'm doing wrong here. I know that the DCC chips are wired up correctly. If we go to this one, Class 43 in Executive Swallow, I know that this is wired up correctly. I can get this to run. I'll probably fail miserably if I put it on the track now and it won't run for me. Let's just see if I can get it. And I do have the chip connected. Let's see if I can come back, select 43, 46. This is where we'll find out that no, I have reprogrammed a bunch of things and they've gone kind of all over. So I can get that one to go, but still very jerky behavior, kind of like we've seen before. So yeah, I know that I've got them wired up correctly in terms of isolating. That's coming a little bit closer just so I can kind of show people, just to make sure. So ignore some of the bad wiring. This is not the easiest one to see, but if someone could just check me and make sure that what I should have is red, which goes into, actually that's not going to be a good one. Let's switch over to this one. I know that this one, here we go, I know this one is correct. So red and black is what's actually going to be then powering to the motor itself, and it's actually orange and gray that go to DCC chip itself. So these two right here, gray and then orange, that's my motor plus and motor negative. And then the actual red, this one right here, is then going to be pickup from one side, and then black right here, DCC, is then pickup on the other side. And I'm consistent across all of my locos. I've double checked the wiring diagrams for these Hatton DCC controllers, and it should be red and black are the pickups from the rails, and then orange and gray should be positive and negative for the motor itself. I either get still very, very jerky behavior, like I did from that class 43, or actually pretty much all these others do almost nothing. It's almost like the actual gears themselves are binding and aren't quite spinning. I'm trying to find one that was a little awkward. Actually, let's pick with this one in blue. I actually replaced this one with a CD motor. And again, when it's off the track, when it's out of the bogie, it runs just fine. But what I find is that there's a little bit of play inside the gears, especially on the bottom ones. You can see how much play there is right there on that bottom gear. There's a lot of play on these gears, and it seems to be that when they're aligned just right, they'll run. But for the most part, it's just not really doing a whole lot. Multimeter is sitting there. I know I'm getting power correctly. I can unsolder all of the joints, and just kind of have it sitting on a piece of test track with power to it, and I know that I've got them wired correctly. But I'm just having such a rough time with these locomotives. It's very frustrating because I've put a lot of time into all the track work now, and I've got wiring, and I've got DCC control, and I've got the points all done, and I'm still at this point where I just cannot reliably get these locos to run. So if anyone has got any thoughts on what I can do with these older class 43s, it's the older Hornby and Lima class 43s. They're all the ring-field motors. Trying to think all the different things that I've gone through at this point. So I've taken all the ring-field motors apart, cleaned and serviced them, lubricated them. I've put in new brushes. I've put in new springs. I've taken out the actual axle wheels themselves and polished those, so I know it's not electrical conductivity. I know that it's picking up power from the rails, no problem. If I apply power directly to the pickups, then it'll run just fine. If I take it off and run on a test track, they get power just fine. I can move the DCC chip from class 43 executive and put it in something like the A4, and it just doesn't move. So I know that it's not so much a problem of the DCC chips themselves. They're all Hattons 8-pin decoders. I know it's not the track because I have that one kind of hanging out over there. If I can switch over to that one and try and bring it backwards, even on very slow speeds, it can kind of pick up and it can move, no problem. This is one of my HO Bachmann Trions. This is kind of my little canary. It's like if this thing doesn't run, then I know I have a problem. Because this thing is basically bulletproof. I mean, it's been dropped off the layout I don't know how many times by my kids, and that thing still runs, so I can quite happily move that around the layout. So I know it's not a problem with the track power. I can pretty much rule out problem with the track power. I've got the same behavior on the Bachmann Easy Command as well as the NCE Power Cab, so even though I've put the NCE Power Cab in place, I don't believe that that's a problem. I know that the Power Cab can do different things when it's in programming mode in terms of not putting out full amount of power. I think it only puts out 0.5 amps or less than 0.5 amps, just in case you would have the chip wired incorrectly, so it wouldn't fry that. But I'm not in programming mode, and I've got this problem. The only thing that I can think of is it's something to do with these gearings. I've tried taking them apart and putting them in place. This seems to be so much play that just seems wrong to me. But then things like this mallard, the A4 mallard, like this was basically brand new. I didn't take this apart, and it did work on DC. It did stutter a little bit, admittedly, on DC, but I haven't taken this apart and tried to clean it because the damn thing's basically brand new. I mean, I'm almost certain that this thing was never actually ran. So why, from the conversion to DCC, I would now have nothing? I don't know, when my multimeter tells me that everything is getting power as it should do. It just doesn't then move. So a little frustrated, and that's kind of why I've been stalled, because I spent a long time back and forth on all of these. The good thing, in a way, is that Hornby are releasing this guy in June or July, a re-release of this guy in that particular livery. So I have that on pre-order through Haddon's. a little expensive, but you know, I figured how much money I've put into these, and I don't actually have anything that runs. But I'm kind of excited in that it comes with TDS sound already fitted, and I think it's a pair of power cars as well. I've already got the coaches for it, so I should be able to drop it on the layout and run. I know that, you know, the HO one runs fine. I've got another HO loco that's the same way. I just need locos that run, and that's why I haven't really done a whole lot. I've actually got more going on over here with T-Track layout that I'm starting to... I'll do another video on that because there's a whole lot of work happened there. But if anyone has any ideas as to what I am doing wrong, what else I can be looking for here, am I wrong in that it should be gray and orange that goes to the motor, and then black and red for the pickups? Like I say, this one is even being swapped out for a CD motor, which I know works fine. I know I've seen so many people use those. I've got another 2 or 3 of those hanging out, but it's like I don't want to, you know, take the whole damn thing apart like I did here, and then find that no, it still doesn't work. My Class 91, the same thing. You know, I know that this is right. It's got the nylon screws, the same as the A4 does, to isolate it, to isolate the motor, and I'm still having problems. So yeah, anyone who's got thoughts, ideas, suggestions, please do let me know. I have seen a few places that can do maintenance and servicing on locos, and I'm almost at the point where I'm going to pack these up and ship them off somewhere and say, okay, you take them apart, you service them, clean them, and get these operational, because I believe that at least this one, the one in blue with the CD motor, that should run so smoothly, unless there's something else that I'm just missing. I'd rather not pack them up and ship them off, just because it's going to get expensive to ship off 5 locos, 6 locos. You know, the shipping costs, and then most of it's, you know, 20-30 pounds per loco for servicing. Maybe that's what I need to do. But before I do that, if anyone's got thoughts, since I know a lot of different people run them, please do leave me a comment. I do have some other stuff coming in the mail. Hopefully it will be here in the next few days. So next weekend I'll be able to share what they are. I have also started work on the third platform. I don't have the platforms out here because this was somewhat of a workbench area, but I have started work on the third platform as well. And you know, by third platform, basically everything on the back there that is uncovered. That's quite an undertaking. That's basically a video all by itself. So this one's getting a little bit long, and really it's not so much of an update. It's more of a, you know, please help me. You know, but I'm hoping that once I get these figured out, and at least once I get new things that are coming in the mail, I can start doing some things. So there's a little bit of a hint as to what might be coming. At least I can start running something in the next week or two, and pushing to try and get that final part, the platform, done as well. I've got a little bit more work to do. I haven't done anything with finishing up covering insulation and stuff out here, and I still haven't put up the reflectix barrier on the lower part of the trench shed either. But yeah, if we can get these running, then I'll be quite happy, because I've got a lot of coaches that are sitting in the house that I would much rather have being able to run around the layout than just sitting in boxes, and I would much rather have these packed together rather than sitting in pieces. So yeah, let me know in the comments any ideas that you have on how to make these run a little bit better, or you know, if you have used one of these servicing centers where, you know, you ship trains off and get these older Lima and Hornby Class 43s serviced, you know, let me know. And hopefully I'll be able to be a little bit more frequent with video updates over the next few weeks, and we'll start to see some progress on Newcastle Central for real. So thanks for watching, thanks for following along, and we'll be back soon. Bye.